disappearance of Brandon Lawson, Sin in the Bible Belt. On the night of August 9, 2013, 26-year-old Brandon Lawson was driving through a remote stretch of highway in West Texas. Brandon lived in San Angelo, Texas. He was a father, a brother, and someone who had struggled on and off with substance use in the past. That context would later become important, but on this night, the situation unfolded quickly and strangely. Sometime after 11 p.m., Brandon's truck ran out of gas along U.S. Highway 277 near the small town of Bronte. The area was dark, rural, and largely undeveloped. No streetlights, no nearby businesses, and long stretches of open land. Brandon called his brother, Kyle Lawson, and told him he needed help. Kyle agreed to come get him, but Brandon said he didn't want to wait in the truck. He told Kyle he was going to walk down the road to look for help or a gas station. That decision would change everything. Shortly after, Brandon made a 911 call. The call is brief, chaotic, and difficult to understand, but it has been analyzed thousands of times. Brandon sounds panicked and out of breath. He tells the dispatcher that he's being chased. He mentions both the Mexicans and the sheriff, statements that have fueled years of debate about whether he was describing real people, law enforcement activity, or something else entirely. At one point, Brandon says, "Yes, I'm in the middle of a field." He also states that someone is chasing him out of town. The dispatcher tries to get clarity, asking for his location, asking who is after him, but Brandon's responses are fragmented. The call ends without resolution. When Kyle arrived at the location where Brandon said his truck was, he found it abandoned on the side of the road. The hazard lights were on. Brandon's phone was not in the truck. Kyle searched the area and shouted Brandon's name. He claims he heard Brandon yell back once, but couldn't pinpoint where the voice came from. Law enforcement arrived soon after. A search began that night and continued for days. Police dogs tracked Brandon's scent away from the road and into a nearby field. The scent abruptly stopped near an oil field area, suggesting Brandon may have either entered a vehicle or moved in a way that disrupted the trail. Despite extensive searches using dogs, helicopters, and volunteers, no trace of Brandon was found. His phone was eventually discovered several days later, not far from where the truck had been left. It was damaged, but still added to the mystery. If Brandon had dropped it intentionally or accidentally, it suggested he had been moving on foot for some time. Over the years, theories multiplied. Some believed Brandon was experiencing paranoia, possibly influenced by substances, and became disoriented in the dark terrain. Others believe he may have encountered real people, whether criminals, landowners, or something else, and fled in fear. The area where Brandon disappeared is rugged and unforgiving. It includes fields, ravines, oil infrastructure, and uneven ground. It is not a place where someone unfamiliar with the terrain could easily navigate at night. For nearly a decade, Brandon Lawson remained missing. Then, in early 2022, partial human remains were discovered several miles from where his truck had been found. Clothing recovered at the site was consistent with what Brandon had been wearing the night he disappeared. In 2023, authorities confirmed that the remains were Brandon Lawson's. The discovery brought a form of closure, but not answers. Investigators have not publicly determined the cause of death. It remains unclear how Brandon traveled the distance from his truck to where he was found, what exactly happened during or after the 911 call, or whether anyone else was involved. What makes this case so haunting is not just the unanswered questions, it's the timing. Brandon vanished from plain sight, and his final moments were marked by fear, confusion, and isolation. His case sits at the intersection of rural America, limited visibility, imperfect emergency response, and human vulnerability. And even now, knowing where Brandon was eventually found, the most important questions remain unanswered. What or who was Brandon running from? And what truly happened in the dark fields of West Texas that night?